Welcome to the Successful Nurse Coach podcast. On this podcast, Laura
and Shelby, both board-certified nurse coaches, show you how to make as much money as you want in private practice as a nurse coach. Hello, everybody. It is Shelby here on the Successful Nurse Coach podcast, and I am joined today with Laura, and we are going to be tackling one of the biggest buzz phrases in our community, which is the thoughts and feelings and all of the everything surrounding coaching for free. And if you felt your palms get a little sweaty before listening to this episode, then this episode is for you. This is something that we've heard just so much, and we have, of course, lots of thoughts and educated opinions around this topic. But before we jump into that, I wanted to put on your radar that we are having a bookkeeping workshop about best financial practices hosted by our wonderful bookkeeper, Erin Mize. She does our books. She's been doing our books for a really long time, and she does a lot of the nurse coaching community's books. So she is well-versed, not only in bookkeeping and taxes, but around our specific needs as coaches and as nurse coaches as well. So that is going to be on the 28th. Go ahead, check out our website. You can register there. Also, the information is in our Facebook group. So that ties in to this topic a little bit around coaching for free. Let's give Erin a job to track things for us. And yeah, oh my gosh, there's so much to say around this topic, but I do want to kick off and kind of ground us into the fact that if you feel in your heart that you should coach for free, that likely means that you are swimming in your life's purpose. And that is a good thing. That is a good thing. And so it's holding the duality of the reality that the world that we live in and getting paid for our services, and also knowing that if we lived in a different reality, if that reality was that coaches were taken care of by society, then hell yeah, we would all coach for free and it would be freaking awesome. But yeah, Laura, what is your top thought around this topic?
Well, I feel like we do pro bono coaching. So it's something that we actually are introduced to pretty early. And then we graduate, we move into the quote unquote real coaching world. And there is lots of different frames of thought around coaching for free. And, Shelby and I, when we launched this Successful Nurse Coach company, we had different business coaches, and we continued to enroll into different business containers, not because we were trying to find clients, but because we wanted to find out in the coaching world, how are other people mentoring people to do this? And so there's lots of different thoughts on free coaching and discovery calls and the prosperous coach method. And there's even a new kind of buzz around, you should never give coaching away for free, know your worth, blah, 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 like that kind of vibe. Mm-hmm. So it can get confusing. And then what I see is that people just don't know if it's right or wrong, or they're doing, if it's bad or good, or their intentions are aligned or misaligned, and it can feel muddy. And so I wanted to acknowledge that if you go Google, should I coach for free? I haven't Googled that. So it'd be interesting to see what comes up. That you're going to get a lot of different answers. And so this podcast, what we're going to say is specifically for nurse coaches, specifically for healer archetypes, specifically for people coming from a medical background. I think that the paradigm that we have could be slightly different than the regular world. And so that's the lens we're going to deliver this through, is what we've seen works best for our community. With exploring a lot of other communities. This isn't myopic. It's inclusive. I mean, we're constantly looking at different things still. Like, we both just had access to different ways that entrepreneurs teach coaches how to do this. And what we're finding is that the ones that are really good kind of all say the same thing, which is helpful for us.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think also too, we've been on the experiencing end of being in a proposal process with a lot of different coaches as well.
Yes.
Ones that offer a free coaching thing on the front end to see if you're a good fit. some that literally just announce on social media. Like I recently invested like $5,500 in a coaching container that has a lot of people in it that I never have talked to her, the lead of this space other than in DMs. And then like we've invested in a business mentor strategist, same thing. He didn't get on a call and sell us. He completely relied on our intuition to be like, you'll know if this is the right space for you. And so I think if we can just go ahead and remove the right and wrongness of how you approach it, then this conversation becomes a lot easier. And then the question is like, what feels best for you?
Yeah.
And we'll get into even a little bit about how we start all of our clients with the successful nurse coach method, because that's what feels best for most. And it's a blueprint. We color all over the blueprint. We color outside of the lines. We individualize all the time. And we'll get into that in a little bit. However, I kind of do want to touch on how coaching for free can be really awesome, especially if you have a one-on-one only practice. It allows you to be in control of who is in your bubble because you're going to be spending a lot of time with them. If you have a one-on-one only practice, you're likely providing a really high level of support to a small group of people. And it's important that all of those clients are 10 out of 10. And I would recommend that you would do like some sort of interviewing process for a couple of years while you fine tune that process. And then on the other side of the coin, we hear this phrase of like, I just want to coach for free. And that can be rooted in some limiting money beliefs. That could be rooted in wounded healer archetypes of like, I have to just give and give and give and give with no energetic exchange of the monetary kind to support yourself so that you can continue to give. And I think that's what I want to touch on next is like when this actually isn't in service, when you shouldn't be coaching for free, and how in turn that makes it not in service for your client either. Like for example, in our successful nurse coach method, it's very close to the prosperous coach, to where we say, give a session away for free. You have some creativity on how long that session is, and then make a proposal on the second call. And it's very intentional, because if you're like giving away 6 sessions for free and then trying to do a proposal, it's off, right? Like it's hard to transition into a paid space. But we see this. I'll have clients come to call sometimes and they're like, Shelby, I don't be mad at me, but I ended up doing 4 sessions for free instead of the 2. And like, that's a red flag moment of like, okay, there's something else going on here. We felt uncomfortable in the proposal. We felt weird about the proposal. Like, tell me more about what's going on. But what's been your experience with that when it's not in service to our coaches?
I think, well, I'm going to zoom back to younger Laura and early, just my own personal experience with this. And if I needed to keep offering free coaching, it was probably because I secretly didn't believe that I could serve them in a way that was valuable. And I was postponing that. The other would be somebody who probably mostly needed therapy, and I was trying to figure out if I could make it work in a coaching container. When you cast a wide net to strangers, and this is what I did when I started my practice, was just I would coach anybody and everybody, and then I would have a certain people in front of me who really either they had mental health problems. Both sessions were so wildly different that I invited them into a third because I still didn't understand what I was working with. So I think a lot of times in the beginning, it can just be and I didn't have a mentor at that time. I didn't have my coach at that time. So that would have been helpful. But I think that in the beginning, if we find ourselves keep offering free coaching, it's usually has something to do with our own confidence and just lack of experience. So it's not wrong. It's not terrible. It's not bad. It's just not really helpful to do that without moving forward and through it for a long period of time. And then I found that, for free coaching sessions, people, they no-show 40% of the time. So that's frustrating and not fun. And it's part of the game. It's part of what to expect. But if you continually free coach 4 or 5 sessions and they have a half and half show up rate, then you're serving someone for months for free with no energetic exchange. And that can get weird fast too. I feel like I went off topic, Shelby.
No, you answered it. You did
Okay,
it.
cool. Cool.
You did it.
I circled back around. I don't know. I was just, yeah.
You landed the plane.
Cool.
Yes, I agree with you of whenever we host, and I think it could be important on how we frame it too, right? If you reached out to 50 people and are like, hey, I'm doing free coaching hours this month, your turnout rate's probably way less than if you framed it as like, hey, I have a few spots in my practice for pro bono coaching, and I would love to gift one of them to you.
Yes.
One of them feels more precious than the other. And we highly encourage and give lots of scripts around how to phrase that offering whenever you're new, because it's all foreign, right? We're making it up, or you're making it up as you go along. But there's a definite, it feels different whenever it feels like there's not 100 spots available as you're getting your wheels going in your practice.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'll give you kind of our most used in general script for this is if you're doing this in a post or you were sending this in a message, is like, hey, I am building my practice on word of mouth and referral only. So every month I give away a few free sessions to people that I'm inspired by. And I thought of you. And is there a day next week that we could meet for our first session? So we don't say, I'd love to give you 2 free sessions, because we want people to try out for that second session. First session, you can schedule it. And then at the end of that session, you can say, hey, I would love to have another call with you. I'm going to assign homework and it needs to be done before you come to the next call. Are you in? So then you're further qualifying them to get into that second call before you make the proposal at the end of that second call. And that's different than, hey, my mentor is charging me with doing 50 coaching sessions this month free. That's fine too. That's like a different vibe, right? It's like if you're in the coach your ass off phase where you're just like, I want to see how many hours I can coach this month, it will result in clients. And if you do it that way, that's another way that can work. It's just a little bit different, right? And so you'll have different experiences with both ways.
Yeah. I was totally the latter, by the way. Like I used my coach as a scapegoat regularly to get me to do things and to take the awkwardness out of it for me. And if I could go back and do it again, I would just like tell myself of like, you are qualified. You can do this. You don't have to practice. You are a real nurse coach. You can do it for real. You can offer it for real. And it'll be okay. Your people will say yes. The people who want to say yes will say yes regardless. Either works. If you coach 50 hours, I can guarantee your first 10 grand is in there for sure. For sure.
Yeah. And I think the other, and I might be getting a little bit off topic, but a nice segue to this is you are, if you come out of CERT, you've done your 40 hours of pro bono coaching. If you can listen intently, try to love them unconditionally, and hold them to the agreement at the beginning of the container, it's going to transform their lives. You do not need to know every single technique that you learned in coaching CERT to deploy on every single coaching call. Those are all, that would be like the other 20%. 80% is going to be curiosity and deep listening. And then all of the fancy things that you learn in coaching and or techniques that you can learn about coaching are going to fit into that other 20%. So just know when you come out of CERT, you're 80% there. And then you spend the next 20 years like incrementally creating more capacity to serve different people in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. I was fixing to say, I was like, man, if someone quizzed me on all of the techniques that we learned in certification, I would fail. Like I wouldn't pass and I'm still a really good coach too. I know for me that if I get too caught up on like the logistics on how to coach, I get lost in the sauce, and to where like if I rely on my own comfort level and just holding space for people, that is way more potent for me than trying to deploy all these little nitty-gritty things. And I also know that I learned by watching other coaches do their job super well. Like that's my most potent way to learn is by watching somebody else do it. And then I can like inhale it, alchemize it for my own, and then, use it in my own coaching spaces that way.
That is why group business coaching for 99% of people is 100% better than one-on-one business coaching, because you observe another coach coaching. You're not just the client. You get to actually observe somebody do what you want to do, like an apprentice, for a year. It's so valuable. Shelby and I always say this. I coach just like my first coach, Christina. She coaches like her first coach. Obviously, we've created our own flavors and styles, and we incorporate other mentors we've had, but they laid the foundation, kind of showing us like, how do you be a professional coach? What do you look like? How do you talk? How much silence do you have? How spicy can you be? Can you be a bitch? Can you be not be a bitch? Yeah. That's because we just don't know. You don't know until you're in it. So, we're off topic. Coming back to free coaching. What did your first coach think about free coaching? What was her?
Oh, she was a hard pass on all of it. She did more like the discovery call approach, to where it was like 20 minutes, and it was very find the pain point and tell them that you can help them, and then make a proposal. Okay. And to be honest, that's exactly what she did with me. She asked me a little bit about me. She was like, what's nurse coaching? Okay, I think I understand. What do you want your business to look like? And I told her I want it to be remote. I want to operate off social media, and I want my practice to be completely online. And she goes, okay, I can help you with that. I have an 8-week program starting in like August. Do you want to be a part of it, to where I can walk you through the process of how to do this? And I was like, sure. And like, that was it. That was the entire proposal process. It wasn't like this deep, intense coaching experience with her. And I appreciate now like the brevity of that, right? Too. Like there's a lot to be learned from that. And I think it was like an $1,800 investment for 8 weeks. It was pretty low. Yeah. So I was just like, meh. I can work a couple shifts and repay that if I needed to. Yeah. Like that was my mindset at the time, because she supported me through a lot of the beginning stages of coaching nurse coaches too. And I learned a lot from her. She's like, there's not one way to do this. There's 100 ways to do this, but like what feels best and what's in highest service to the people you're working with. I referred a lot of nurse coaches to her in the beginning, and she told me she didn't like working with them because they were too in their feminine. And she's like, I can't, like, I'm not their person to walk them through this process. I think that you are their person to walk them through this process. And she helped me on the back end, but she was very diligent on like, don't coach any more than like 1 or 2 meetings. Like that's max. Yeah. 2 is even probably out of alignment. And so, what did Christine think about it?
Well, I think she shifted, but she was 2 hours. It was 6 months for 12,000. So it was a bigger investment. Obviously to me at that time, it was huge, and a higher price than ours is now. So it was quite an investment for 6 months, but it was 2 hours on the front end, 2 hours on the back, 4 hours of free coaching before we signed. Yeah. And I think that's excessive. I don't think that's necessary. I think that it's not bad, and you definitely are going to know who they are, and you can cultivate your space. I think that I started doing calls like that, but if you're not charging more than $10,000, I just don't think that that's the right first move. And that's why we offer 2 free calls. First one's an hour. Second one can be up to an hour. But we try to include the client having to take some action. And Christina did that too. She elicited action from me that I had to do in the first 48 hours after the enrollment call. Yeah. And it was great. It was a good experience. And it's kind of, I think we took both of our styles, and that's how we made the Successful Nurse Coach method. Mm-hmm. And really quickly, for those of you who maybe are just tuning in, I'll go really quickly over what we recommend. I know we've said it 1,000 times, and then we'll talk about the fact that you won't be doing this forever. So while you start your practice, you're two new things at the same time. You're a new coach and a new entrepreneur, right? So you're doing 2 things simultaneously on these discovery calls and or powerful conversation number 1, which is what we call it. And you are coaching, and simultaneously you are selling your coaching. And that can be a lot for a new coach to straddle. So that's why we break it into 2. So that powerful conversation number 1 is all about serving. We give you structure on how to do that first call. Then you elicit action from your client so that by the time they come back to their second call, their homework has already created value in their life. And then in the second call, you are doing more selling, less coaching.
Yeah.
And it makes it easier for your brain to separate the two so that when you're inviting and serving, you're not worried about you making money, overcoming objections, all the other things, because it's going to make you nervous and pull you out of being centered and grounded for your client.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, you just basically do that process in one call because you figure out how to do it quicker and faster and you get better at it. So usually we see people doing that after they've had like 8, 9, 10 paid clients. They'll switch to, and we'll tell them, I think you could probably go down to one call. And we're also trying to save them their time too.
Right. And usually the way it goes is like people do this, the 2-call method from anywhere from like 6 months to a year. Like that's genuinely how long it takes to learn and find comfort in that process. And then they'll come to a call and be like, Shelby, I'm over it. I don't want to do these 2 calls anymore. They've usually gotten a few yeses in a row. Their confidence is up. And then I'm like, all right, like we have a different framework that we can slip into. We have a strategy for that. And let's try this on. And they usually end up, they're ready. They're ready to like condense those calls. And I think that just after you put in several hours of proposals, you know what type of person you have in front of you and you know how to powerfully support them quickly. And I always admire coaches that can like see where my brain is trying to go. And they're like, nope, bring it back here. Bring it back to the vision. That's an erroneous thought. I love when people do that to me because I don't even know that I'm like off in resistance land, you know? And like recently we upgraded, I guess you could say, our package with our business strategist. And on the back end of things, like our business is thriving and completely well, but like our cash flow is lower than it's been in months past. And we told him, we were like, oh man, it feels really uncomfy to upgrade because of X, Y, and Z. And he just responded with like, oh, that's how the universe works. It's asking you to trust. And like, that's literally all he said, y'all. He didn't like be like, tell me more or why, or he didn't validate like our fear in a sense of like giving it more power than it already had. Right. He just said, oh, that's how it works. And so if this is in alignment for you, the offer still stands. And guess what we did? We invested more. Like that's exactly what we did, you know? And so
because he's right. And we read that and we knew he was right. Like we could feel it. We could feel him and his intention. And this is what we walk our clients through all the time. And it was actually quite fun to experience that at this stage, Shelby. It was like really humbling and fun to walk through it and then still choose faith, you know, still choose belief instead of fear.
I know. Absolutely. I feel like we are getting a big invitation just to be refreshed into practicing what we preach in this, this season. And it's so funny to even talk about that because again, we both have multiple years of nursing salary in the bank right now for both of us. Like it's not even actually scary at all. It's all perceived. But I'm like, oh, we're just getting another initiation. We haven't had some of these in a while.
Yeah.
It's so good. So there's a lot of nuance here, which is probably what's coming through at this moment. But I want to put a line in the sand with you guys as well to know if you are in resistance land, which is a term I just coined on this podcast. This does not come up as much as it used to. So either nurse coaches who have this frame don't message me anymore because I'm so spicy about it. But I can imagine that it still exists out there. So whenever people tell me that they want to coach for free and they don't have any wiggle room around that belief, like they genuinely just want to coach for free, I tell them to go coach for free. Like I'm not going to like convince people that they need to get paid for their coaching. But what ends up happening is that they coach for free and nobody shows up because no one sees any value in free coaching, especially strangers, right? They don't know you. They don't like you. They don't trust you. Why are they going to show up to transform their life when that's really difficult? They don't have any skin in the game. And I do think that there is some intertwined, like limiting belief here. If you're trying to not make it about the money, you're inherently making it about the money, right? If
Yeah.
you're trying to coach for nothing and you're trying to do all these things, you're making it about the money, which is then also making it about you and not your client. And time and time and time again, because we've walked so many nurse coaches in increasing their prices, right? We give you a baseline price of like $1,500 for 12 weeks with an eventual goal of having 3,000 for 12 weeks or 5,000 for 6 months. Like we walk you through this process. And I have heard time and time again of whenever people increase their prices, they get better results with their people.
Yes.
And there's a sweet spot of not overcharging just because you can, but like still being in service. And so also we tinker with that as well. But I do not think coaching for free, all like for the entirety of your container, is in service to people.
No.
I really, really don't.
No, I don't either. There's very few exceptions to this energetically. There are exceptions to this. There would be people in your community that are going through crazy financial hardship, which is circumstantial and fleeting, and yet they have the commitment and the fortitude to change their life, and it could all align and it could work. But that's going to be probably like a 1% to 2% part of the population.
And the coach has to be financially secure.
Right.
Completely in order to be able to provide that for people.
Yeah. And that can be if you want to be that, which I still do some versions of this sometimes, which still might mean that ass. I haven't quite figured it out yet. I wanted to make enough money so that when somebody really needed me that couldn't afford me, that I had the freedom to choose to do that. And I know a lot of you have that too, that you feel like nurse coaching is only for the privileged or nurse coaching is only for the middle class. And yes, I would say that's probably true. In private, to hire a private nurse coach or a private life coach, it is going to be at a price point that is going to mostly attract people in the middle class, professional people, people that do have income. And if your heart is to serve a different community, make that your year 3 goal. But we have to put oxygen on your business first. You have to have money in the bank and have no fear of your own finances. Make sure your own family is taken care of before we can create something sustainable and wonderful and innovative to help that other population of people, which maybe would be in the form of starting a nonprofit, right? Like there's so many ways we can give back and do. And we don't want to squash that. That's not free coaching. That's like an advanced level of serving your community through a mission that is driven by your financial success in your practice, which doesn't come from free coaching.
Right. Yeah. And I even, as you're talking, like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs comes to mind, and like folks that are in crisis, not a lot of them qualify for coaching because coaching is future focused, right? We're learning to fine tune and how do we make life the best it can possibly be. It's really hard for folks to tap into that if they're like insecure about where their housing is or their food or their water or clothing, like basic needs aren't met. Yeah. And so even thinking about serving those communities in your 3rd year of practice, when you can actually do that, it might be coaching, but it also might be just like donating financial resources to a nonprofit or creating a nonprofit that already has the systems in place to be able to support people in this spot. Right. I know that nurses in particular, we have hearts of gold, and that is completely on purpose, that you are here to build capacity to hold a large income so that more good people in the world can have financial resources to be able to do things like this. Yeah. Like it's all completely on purpose. We just, like Laura said, have to put oxygen on you and your business first, and then we get to be creative what we do with the excess. Yeah.
Yeah. So free coaching that is serving the purpose of giving you reps of hours of coaching calls and powerful conversations is valuable. Free coaching that is the beginning of a potential professional relationship with a client is beneficial. Free coaching that is happening because you're insecure or you're unsure how to sell, not in service to you, not in service to your client.
Yeah, totally. And we try to break these rules semi-frequently too, right? Like I feel like we test them out every now and again just to make sure that they're still true. So even in our business, anytime that we have made special exceptions on
Yes.
literally anything financial in our business, it always blows up. Like I can't think of a time, honestly, that it didn't. Oh, and if it doesn't blow up, because actually not everything blows up, but it's like those clients never like it their business never gains any traction if we're constantly like bending. And we bend, but like bending repetitively over and over to meet people in their story. I won't even say where they're at, but to meet them in their story, I think is where we've gotten lost in the soup sometimes as well.
I think I'm going to use, we were talking about this earlier before we started recording. My husband we have a short-term rental that my husband manages, and his mentor and a lot of people in the real estate industry will say, whatever Airbnb's policy is, follow it. Like no matter what, it doesn't matter if someone dies. It doesn't matter if someone is sick. Like you just have to follow the policies. And there's these stories of every time you don't follow the policy, it always ends up the client's not happy and you're getting screwed. Like it never ends up well for anybody. And I think about that, like with our business, I think every time that I've been accommodating, which probably, to be brutally honest, meant that I bought into some portion of the story of the client and I went into helper mode, or to, what's the, in the drama triangle, it's savior, right? Is it
the hero?
So, hero, right? So to be quite honest and calling myself out here, my well-meaning heart of gold, wanting to help you guys every time that I have tried to help instead of serve in the form of making it easier or more accessible financially for someone to get into our program. We've never discounted it, given it away for free. We're really strict about that, but made it so that the terms were more favorable. It didn't work. It didn't work for them. It didn't work for us. And it just, the energy of the whole thing didn't feel aligned. And if we can give you that to rest your practice on, of create agreements with your coach and your mentor, create your own policies. And if you're thinking about bending them, seek counsel.
Yeah. Yep.
So just check, see if you're going into hero mode.
And it's so well intentioned, right? Like it's so well intentioned, which makes it not make sense. Oh man. Cause like, I'll just leave it at that. It's so well intentioned. And it sucks that it blows up, right?
Yes. I want to be proven wrong because I love helping.
Yeah. It sucks that it doesn't work out. But I think that I like the distinction that you made there of like helping versus serving, and they're different. And as coaches in the coaching role, we are here to serve. We are not meant to help in this dynamic. I think that there's other ways that we can help and like do all the extra bells and whistles, right? But just like if you can learn from us and take this lesson, please do. But I know most of you are going to need to learn this the hard way, and that's okay too, because obviously we are as well. But it's having skin in the game, especially when you're running groups. Everybody having the same energetic financial commitment is also really important as well. Yeah. Like it's not fair if someone gets in at 10K and then everybody else got in at 6K. Like it'll just be off, and then the coaching calls will be weird as well.
Yeah. Money is energy. And by discounting the amount of energy somebody needs to put into the container with you, is subconsciously telling them, I don't believe enough in you to be resourceful enough to pay me in full. So I'm going to make it easier. It's not a great way for a coach to see a client, right? Because we see our clients as whole and we see them as what's possible. And if they're hiring you, they can and will be able to get the resources to pay you for your services.
Right. It may not just be right now, right? It might be in 6 months or a year. And there's a lot of power in that too, of like, it's not working right now. So let's honor that. And the process of them figuring it out for a whole year, there's so many good nuggets in there as well.
Yeah. Give me some stories of people. I have a few stories we can share, like some case studies around this of coaching for free, of somebody doing too much of it. And I also have a story of somebody not wanting to do it at all, kind of the other side of it. But do you have a story or kind of a case study around somebody who was giving a lot of free coaching away?
Yeah. They weren't making any money in their practice. And this is, gosh, every person who has been sneakily coaching up to like 4 or 5 free sessions. And then they eventually out themselves to me on a group call of like, I've been giving away more coaching than you're aware of. And it's never bad. Like if you're ever in our coaching containers, we're never going to like rake you over the coals for this. It's just like the quicker you can be honest, the quicker we can like dive into it and like what's really going on. So, but they always come and they're a little sheepish and they're like, I haven't been following the process. And now I've gotten myself in this weird hole of where I don't know how to propose from session 4. I don't know how to propose from session 6. And to be honest, it ends up being a wash most of the time.
Yes. Yeah. Well, right. Cause like it would be if a guy came and knocked at my door today and said, hey, I will mow your lawn, $20 to come mow your lawn. Or if a guy said, hey, I'll come mow your lawn 6 times for free, I would trust the dude that was trying to charge me. Like if a dude is trying to come mow my lawn for free, like why? That doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And I know that I've given advice recently to some of my clients of like coaching a magnet of some sort. So like the owner of a gym or the owner, like coaching people with status, with intent of like coaching them for 2 times. The mark is really clear, but you're not going to propose to them. You're going to exchange to like get, they refer people to you or something. So there's a little bit more nuance there. I don't want my clients listening to this to be like, but you said what I said there. That's why there's a whole bunch of nuance here. But, and then I've had other people who have been in the enrollment process with us, like a couple of years ago that are like, I just want to coach for free. I don't ever want to charge. I don't need to charge. I'm financially well, but then they like couldn't get anybody to show up for calls.
Yeah.
So, again, it falls flat and, in all lessons learned, right? It structures your framework on why you will charge and why your policies now are informed on why you have them in place moving forward.
Yeah. The other side of this is I had a client in the past who I think I'd only been coaching her for 8 weeks, and she had been playing with the Powerful Conversation number 1 and 2, and she'd actually gotten 2 clients, which is great for your first 8 weeks. So she was moving right along, and she went to another coach's free seminar all about being, I think it was like a powerful feminine thing where you never give away free coaching, and that's so energetically bad. And if any coach tells you to do that, then they're wrong. And so she got really pissed off that I had misled her and decided she was going to try this other way and left the container. And then 6 months later, she was not coaching anymore, right? Because it just, and the reason I see that not working is because when you're coming from like, the world owes me something, I'm so great, I have this service, the world owes me, as opposed to I'm going to serve the world. And by serving the world, naturally money will flow back to you. That's the place we want to start from. So it's, how do we serve, not help? How do we empower, not solve problems for? If this was a charity, how do you teach a village how to create clean water and not just deliver clean water? And I think that's the vibe that I want to give across to you, is that you have to ask yourself, why are you coaching for free? What is the intention? And just getting really clean with that and making sure it's in service to you and your client. And if you want a boundary, 2 free sessions, that's it. Always. That could be your policy.
For sure. Well, that feels like a really great place to end it.
Yeah.
I think I had one more thing I wanted to say, but it kind of like opens up a whole other can of worms. And I think we're probably at 45 minutes on this episode right now. Let us know in the Facebook group of what's been potent on this episode. I really love whenever you guys play with us and tell me what's in resonance for you on the back end. Because Laura and I could talk to each other all day about this stuff, but we want it to be relevant for you. So let us know in the Facebook group, the Successful Nurse Coaches. We'd be happy to have you there, and just what lands for you. That'd be super helpful. Also, if you've made it to the very end of this podcast, I have one more ask for you. Just so we can gauge it. Can you download this episode instead of just listening to it, just streaming it? So if you go into your podcast app and you press download just for this one, so I can get some cool numbers on the back end. I would love to know how many people actually listen to our episode. We have this really cool number of 50,000 downloads, but apparently the listens could be way more than that, and there's no way to track it. So this is my one attempt, my one ask to track that a little bit better. And yeah, come join us for our bookkeeping workshop on the 28th. We would love to have you. Information's on our website and in the Facebook group as well. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, just go out there and coach for free and then get paid. Yes. Awesome.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you later. Bye.
Bye.